Great. Thank you. And thanks everybody for coming. I want to say first off that I am really grateful to Governor Little for the extension of the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order that he announced yesterday. This is incredibly important in this time to ensure that when we do return to work, we're doing it in smart, effective ways and making sure that all the sacrifices we've already made and the progress we've made in containing the spread and flattening the curve continues. So just want to say that right off the bat. But today marks my 100 days in office. And so we wanted to have this press conference so that I can provide to you, the public, a report on my first 100 days, as well as my transition reports from our transition committees. And I'll start, because it's my 100-day mark, with some comments on my 100 days. First off, you can find the reports on our website at cityofboise.org. My 100-day report, we assembled the actions that I've taken with my team here in the city to make sure that the public understands what it is I've been up to, because I think it's really important to have goals, to measure against them, and then to report out to people the progress we've made. And of course, as I think about it, nobody expected on January 7th that our community would be dealing with a pandemic, and our state and nation dealing with a pandemic. So of course, that's factored into the work that I've done the last 100 days. But I want the public to know that from day one, we jumped in and started working on my vision, the priorities that each of the members of the public made clear were important for the future of our community, and to build the team that we need to make that happen. And so I've focused on building relationships regionally, getting to know the incredible staff here at the City of Boise, building more accessibility and collaboration into my own daily, as mayor, the work I'm doing daily as mayor. I'm including some of the press briefings and listening sessions that we continue to have developed an economic development team, and we're now working on building a plan for our city. Of course, have jumped in quickly around housing policy, transportation work that requires relationship building, and then of course, climate and environmental protection, because I believe that that's key to our future. And of course, to do all this, as I said, we built a team here in the city, and my 100-day report details our new directors. Have sought to meet with and sit down with leaders at the state level and throughout this region, and of course nationally in our federal delegation as well. And then look forward to the partnerships that we built in the first half of my 100 days that have been strengthened as we've had to address the pandemic. And I know that they will play a big, big part of our progress moving forward as we seek to recover. So on that, I want to say that while we focused on taking decisive action, addressing the public health needs of our community, at the same time, we've been working in parallel to make good on many of the promises that I made throughout the campaign, and that residents made clear were important to them. And I think that those promises and the values and vision that our residents shared with us through this election cycle actually serve as the foundation for our recovery post-COVID. So again, cityofboise.org has my 100-day report, creating a city for everyone, that I am writing to you, the public. And then I thought I would transition to a little bit of information about the transition reports. So when I was first elected, we named over 70 citizens to transition committees and gave them the following charge: to dream big, to ask questions, but not be limited by what has been done in the past, to create as accessible and honest plan as possible, and then to encourage me to do more than I might think possible. We have offered these plans to the public without alterations, because I think it's so important that the community see what their community members from across the city believed our city needs to do to address where we are and where we head as a community. And so those reports are also available now online. And of course, my job now is to recognize that those reports were developed pre-pandemic, that there are many important suggestions and ideas in those reports that we must address and that will serve as the foundation for our recovery. And at the same time, we've got to prioritize. So in the coming weeks, I will be working with our budget team to determine what's possible, what's most important given where we are today and where we have to be in a year, 2 years, and 4 years. And then I did want to say also that the transition reports list all of our new staff. We have built out the team in the mayor's office that will help me make good on the promises that we have made, to ask tough questions, to collect as much information as possible, and then to make decisions and bring partners together to help us make it possible. And I so look forward to the day when as a community we can come back together and do what we all love to do, which is work together in common cause towards a shared vision. And these transition reports will help develop that path. Before I answer it up to open it up to questions, I did want to say also that one of the important parts of my promise with regard to accessibility and transparency was to continue with my listening sessions. I learned so much. Starting a year ago, actually on April 12th, I think was my first listening session. I learned so much in those and I love them dearly. And I miss being able to do them in person. But on Monday, April 20th at 4 o'clock, we're going to have a telephone town hall since we can't have our April listening session. The phone number, if you're interested, and that'll be online too, is 888-367-7033. And again, that'll start Monday at 4. Give that phone number a call or visit our website for information on how you can get registered, because I'd love to join you and hear from you. You can ask me anything and have as much of a conversation as is possible in a telephone town hall format in lieu of a listening session. And again, as soon as we can come back together, I will start those. So with that, I will open it up for any questions that people have.
And if you could use the chat function, our moderator will let you in one at a time.
Can people turn cameras back on so I can see you?
And I'm checking with our moderator. Does anybody have any questions?
Looks like Don Day has a question. And Harrison.
I always have a question.
And Shara.
As we all do. So much has changed during your first 100 days. What are some things that you think won't happen that might have had this not happened in the last few weeks?
That's a really hard question to answer, because the role of mayor is to kind of bridge that gap between where we were and where we're going to go. And so I am thinking daily about where we head next and what has to be done to successfully protect our community now and recover in the long run, rather than thinking regretfully about what might have been.
So the past era was filled with kind of some big ideas, ballparks and circulators and libraries. Do you think that there will be any of those similar big ideas in the next 4 years that we can see here in Boise?
You know what? We have learned over the years that smart investments to build economies aren't necessarily large capital investments, but instead they're in the systems and people that make economies tick and communities thrive. My campaign was focused on that. I will always hold the value of a library and hope that we will see that at some point in the future, but believe that the road to recovery and a resilient community is grounded in people and investments in people and thinking innovatively about what we need here to serve our community and ultimately to build the place where businesses can grow and people can thrive. Harrison, you no longer have your mute button on. Maybe it's you.
Maybe it is me. Can you give us an update on the search for a new police chief? And can you speak to the kinds of values and virtues that you think that the ultimate winner of that contest ought to have?
Sure. About 2 weeks ago, I conducted interviews with 4 finalists that had been presented to me by the folks that were part of the initial interviewing team. And then just Monday and Tuesday this week, those 2 finalists interviewed with an array of community members in 3 or 4 panels each. So just like this, we had these Zoom panels where community members were called together to interview the finalists. I am looking for in a police chief, of course, a partner who shares my commitment to a safe community and recognizes that there is a connection between criminal justice and social justice and community development. And we need leaders that ask questions about why something might be happening at the same time as they're thinking about what must be done because it's happening. And I had conversations about those very 2 things with the finalists and expect to have a further conversation once I hear from the citizens, their analysis of the 2 candidates.
And if you don't mind my asking a follow-up, do you have any sense of when it might be that you can make an announcement about who will occupy that top slot?
I believe that I will have reports from the Citizens Committee by early next week. And then after that, we'll give myself some time to read through it and then decide timing wise who I want to talk with more, and we'll schedule that. You know, this is an interesting place to be because this hire is so important to every person in this city, and including myself. And we're having to be flexible, agile, and try new things, just as we say this crisis requires of each of us. And that's what I'm having to do, is get to know people by Zoom, which is different than one might have imagined. So Dawn, maybe that's something that's different, is that I didn't get to meet these folks in person. But I do believe you can have very effective conversations and get to the root of values and vision through conversations this way. And that's what I'm going to do.
And this
Thank you
is
very
Karen.
much.
We'll just go around the room. Dawn, are you done? I'm sorry. Okay, Haley Kramer, anything?
Hi, yeah. So I was just wondering if there was anything that you wish to accomplish in your first 100 days that was put off or stopped by the pandemic.
Sure. I had hoped to have more in-person meetings with regional leaders. Quite a few of them were scheduled for the end of March and early April that we had to just push back. And did a lot of those beginning the first day, but there were others that I had really looked forward to that just couldn't happen. We had some other gatherings planned where I could hear from community members, other leaders in the community, to be able to discuss the programs that I hope to put in place with regard to launching an economic development plan and other things. So most of what we haven't been able to do are the larger gatherings where I intended to talk with people about what they saw as our future and to talk also about my vision. But the work that's needed to make planning and policy changes happen has been ongoing because the staff here has kept working, of course, and responding to the needs that the community has, as well as the priorities that I put forth.
Sasha?
Yeah, I'm wondering with decreased revenues that you're going to be looking at, how are you going to be changing your economic development plan?
So we are building an economic development plan led by the Director of Economic Development, Sean Keithley. And in many ways, the timing is perfect because we knew we needed a plan as a city to guide our actions, to help us prioritize the time we spent, where and how and with who. And we're building out that plan, and we'll be talking closely, seeking advice from business leaders, both locally as well as nationally, that now also can give us thinking and suggestions related to recovery that will be the focus of our economic development plan.
Haley Harding.
All right. What would you say has tangibly changed in the last 100 days?
Like literally tangibly?
I mean, I guess not.
I have a desk.
What has
changed?
notably changed?
I've spoken with members of the public through the media weekly. We released ethics guidelines in the first week of office. We've built a new team of people that share my values of asking questions, taking risks, being curious, kind of pushing us for more. I've been in community, but while we could be, gathering information and honestly, like trying to determine how best to move the city forward through an incredible moment of growth with the issues that we saw that are now even more highlighted given where we are at with the pandemic.
Margaret?
And in the 100-day report under each section, we actually gave some examples of people that I met with, actions that we've taken, and then what's next.
Margaret?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the housing issue. So whenever you were sworn in, we were in a housing crisis. There were a lot of people kind of on that edge of homelessness, even before this. How has this changed your sense of urgency around affordable housing, and how do you view your policy changes differently now that we are in a very, in my opinion, in my observation, a much more precarious situation than we were in before when you took office?
We are. I mean, nationally, we are. I actually believe that this highlights the kind of small cracks that many were experiencing in our community, but many others weren't seeing. And now we see them as true issues. With housing, what I did from the beginning was there was $3 million that was set aside for a stadium. I said that money needs to be held onto, and we're going to put it into a housing fund. I asked our budget staff to look for savings to tee up determining, the property tax conversations we needed to have, because property tax impacts affordability. And I heard loud and clear that people need us to address affordability, and that property tax is one way we can do that. So we found savings to tee up budget conversations. We have put $100,000 into street teams through Catch to support the connection of services to those who are experiencing homelessness so we can get them housed, because that's so important. And we've looked at the suite of policies that I had proposed with regard to housing and are now trying to determine what we can do and how quickly. The land bank will be moving forward. Staff is looking at how to implement the policy proposal that I'd suggested, where we negotiate for more affordable housing units. We've had developers come to us and say, what can we do differently that doesn't require a long tax credit process? So I believe that it's even more urgent than it was. And we're attempting to line up the policies necessary to put in front of the city council, and then the budget items necessary to put in front of city council so we can start to move on some of these things. I'm supposed to look at the camera, but I keep looking at whoever I'm talking to. So I'm going to try to look at the camera.
Cheryl, do you have a question? I'm sorry, I just been kind of going down the list.
You're fine. So, obviously the pandemic has been a part of your 100 days in office. Yesterday, the mayor of Los Angeles, he declared or announced that, major events there will likely be pushed back till 2021. Here in Boise, we've, rescheduled events already until this summer. Are you online with that?
Can you pause a second?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, there's background noise, and so it's making it hard for me to hear you.
Oh no. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. So we're talking about the pandemic, and yesterday the mayor of Los Angeles, he announced that major events will be likely pushed back till next year. Here in Boise, we've already rescheduled events till this summer. Are you online with his same type of thinking? Do you see that possibly happening here?
I've said all along that we have to recognize that the virus moves quickly, that we have to be open to making decisions and learning new things on a daily basis. And we are continuously assessing how far out we should be scheduling events. And given what we know now, I'm optimistic that in the fall, there are events that are planned, we'll be able to move forward. But every day I recognize that something different could occur that makes it so we have to make a different decision. And no city's alike. So New York has, their dates. LA announced theirs. Chicago has theirs. The West Coast cities are cooperating. The East Coast states and the East Coast states are cooperating on how we return to business. And so locally here, we've got to talk as a region and with the state about what makes sense. And nothing's off the table, but I'm not going to make pronouncements until we know that it's time to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more. So you had talked early on in the winter months about property tax and having some public engagement. We're going to come up on a deadline here in July on the city's decision on how much it will ask for an increase in property tax or status quo or what it may do. What's your thinking on that now, especially knowing that public input is going to be harder to have?
Public input will be harder to have, maybe. It'll be different. And we won't be able to go out and about to as many places. However, my community engagement team, the city's community engagement team, right now is actually looking at how we can effectively engage the public on these issues. So at the end of April, we will have a work session with the city council on the budget, the impact of the pandemic, but also the recommendations that we believe are important to help us recover and sustain services in the long run. And once we've done that, we'll actually be announcing a way for the public to engage with us, because feedback from the community is really important to me personally. It's a commitment I made to everyone, and we're going to make as good as on that promise as we can, using new technology and just recognizing that the situation is different than it was.
Does the pandemic and the economic fallout at all change your thinking on what the city should do around property tax?
That's a great question. We knew going into this budget cycle that our residents wanted us to look hard at the property tax that we would take. And that's why I asked staff to look for as many dollars and as they could find in savings right early in the year to set that stage. Now we're in a pandemic, and with that extreme economic hardship on the parts of many residents of Boise. So yes, that is going to factor into the conversations that we have. The impact on our own city budget is going to have to factor into the conversations we have. And then, of course, my belief that to grow an economy and to recover an economy, you have to make investments. And I'm going to do that on behalf of the citizens of Boise so that we can, at the end of this, have recovered and find that we're actually a more vibrant, thriving community with opportunity. So there's a lot of things that we have to balance. And those are the conversations that I want to have with the public, as well as, of course, with the city council.
I have another question.
Sasha.
Yeah. How are you balancing economic and health factors when you're making decisions for reopening? And are you planning on following what the state does, or do you think that you might have stricter regulations if you don't feel like the state is doing enough?
I've said all along that I am prepared to make decisions that I believe are right for Boise, even if they are not the same decisions being made in other parts of the state or statewide. But I also have said all along that the best policy response to COVID is to do this together, because we are one state of people that move back and forth between communities. And so it's, of course, always my hope that we can act together. I will not sacrifice public health and good policy for the sake of acting together, because I'm going to think first about what we need to do here. I believe that there is that line. You have to think about health and the economy. Made it clear a month ago that I believe that we can't have a strong economy in the long run if we haven't protected and secured the public health. We need people for an economy, and we need to know that we are healthy and our community is safe to build our economy in the long run. So it is my goal in all of this and in the absence of information that I would like us to have, I will always fall on the side of health because it's about people. But at the end of the day, when we make decisions about people, we're making decisions that will help us recover more quickly.
I've got another question. Is there going to be a channel for us to ask more in-depth follow-ups on these transition reports after this because we weren't able to read them prior?
I'm like saying, of course, yes. Please contact Karen. We are happy to answer any questions. Just remember that it was really important to me that we give you all the ideas from the citizens, and then comes the hard work of figuring out, how we make things happen and how we're going to sequence it and what makes sense now, given the state of the world we're in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. Oh, I didn't put it in the thing. Okay, I have another question.
I like your flowers, Haley.
I'm sorry?
I like the flowers in the background.
Thank you. They're fake.
Oh, they look real.
That's how they stay vibrant. They're made of plastic. Anyway, what do you anticipate coming forward in the next 100 days? And I know that's hard because we're in a pandemic right now. But if you had to list some things, what would?
Yeah, we will announce a recovery team and begin the work of our economic development plan that's tied to that. You will see a lot of conversations about our budget, of course, and in the presentation of our budget, you'll see the value of housing policy, climate and innovation, as well as transportation reflected, because all of those are building blocks of a strong economy. And you will continue to see, I guess, more build outs of how we engage the public around all of these things, but using technology because of the state that we're in. And then there's the big question of, we've got to be honest. We don't daily know what's next, given where we're at. And so you will continue to see me being clear about the fact that every day is a new day when you're dealing with a crisis, but also balancing moving a city forward. And so I fully expect that there will be other pieces of policies and actions that we have to take based on the slate or the world that the virus gives us in the next 100 days. For me, it's super important to balance, and I will continue to, because you can't do one and then you can't just focus on what's happening today if you want to do well after. So it is day to day determining the steps we have to take to best protect our community and to respond to the crisis, to talk with the public about that, and then also the operations in parallel to that will serve as the foundation for recovery when we open up. Harrison, it looks like you're unmuted.
It looks like I am. You'd mentioned your next 100 days. Can you tell us, what are kind of like your three, top, sort of top to-do list items coming up for your next 100?
Sure. Next 100 is April, May, June, July. Okay. Preparation of a budget that reflects the values that I brought to this office and the needs of our community. A climate and innovation proposal that factors heavily into our economic development future. And of course, the economic development plan that I've mentioned, as well as introduction of housing policies that need to be implemented. if I am working daily to make sure that Boise is a city for everyone. And that means we need to focus on what will make it possible for us all to have a home that we can afford. Ultimately, transportation that gets us access to new opportunities. With an eye always to climate and innovation as a backbone of a new economy. And in this world, and thinking post-COVID as well, being willing to embrace the new reality, learn from the challenges we've had, and focus on what's next will be key to making sure that we can rebuild our economy and achieve that opportunity that so many of our residents, are looking to the city and others throughout this community to make sure that we have in the long run.
Thank you.
If everyone's done, I did just send out to all your outlets the press release. And there is a link to this press conference that will be live in about 15 minutes or so. And you all know where to reach me. So please give me a call. I'm happy to set up any additional interviews or get you any additional information that you need. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Stay healthy, be well. Look forward to talking again.
Thank you.
And I guess I just want to close with going back to 100 days. I am incredibly grateful for this opportunity that's been afforded to me, and wake up daily with the weight of the office, the challenges that each of us is facing, but incredibly motivated and inspired by what I've seen in our community, by people who recognize that each of our actions has impact on others, that we together will get through this. And because of that, I think we'll be a better community for it. So thank you all very much. Take care.